Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. If you're ready for some new ideas, try the CPS system with our guest, Dr. Roger Firestien. Roger, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure, Bill. Happy to be here.
Now, Roger, you've written a book, Create in a Flash. And as I read at the beginning of the book, you're someone who, from childhood, we want to be a policeman or a cowboy or a doctor, but you were always very interested in creativity. So can you give us a little bit about that background?
Sure, Bill. Well, I was fortunate. I grew up on a farm in northern Colorado, and I'm a farm kid, and the way you amuse yourself on the farm is you make things up. And so I had a very supportive family. My mother's a church organist. My father's a farmer. And so I spent days building rafts on ponds in Colorado. I spent days building tree houses. I spent days with my dad making go-karts out of wagons because we didn't have the money for any other sorts of entertainment. And so from very early on in my life, I learned how to build things and create things. And then I went into the music field, was going to be a music instructor, and was teaching guitar in northern Colorado, trying to get my students to get more creative, because if I thought they'd get more creative, they'd enjoy their music lessons more. And what I found was I got very interested in the process of creativity. And so in the late 1970s, I found a place in Buffalo, New York at SUNY Buffalo State called the International Center for Studies in Creativity that teaches the science of creativity and the research behind creativity. I got my master's in 1979, was fortunate enough to be hired there in 84, and I'm still a senior faculty at now called the Center for Applied Imagination at SUNY Buffalo State.
When you say that, I don't know if I'm the first one or the only one, but immediately something Disney-esque comes to mind. And I think they have the world of imagination in Disney World, and I think there's a little purple and yellow creature, Fidget or something like that. And he's head of the imagination department. And, it's a cute place. I enjoy it. I go there every time I'm visiting there. But I don't know. Is that the way it is in Buffalo, or is it very scientific and real-worldish?
Well, it's not quite like Disney. It's much more along the scientific and real-worldish side. And just to kind of give you some origin of where this started, we base our work on the work of a gentleman named Alex Osborne, who's the only advertising agency, BBDO, one of the largest in the world. Osborne was a Buffalonian and a New Yorker, and he invented the brainstorming technique, which is a technique for group generation of ideas that follows some very, very specific guidelines. And that's a tool for coming up with ideas. But Osborne realized that just generating ideas wasn't enough. So he developed a process called creative problem solving, or CPS for short, that helps you to identify what the real issue is, then generate ideas for solving it, then refine those ideas, and then develop plans to put those ideas into action. So, Bill, there's an entire process for creativity. And in the book, we actually you call it as a recipe for creativity. Just as you have a recipe to cook a great meal, there's a systematic, tested recipe for you to consistently come up with breakthrough ideas.
And I understand, I think you said it right at the beginning of your book, the book will show us how to be a deliberately creative personality. Now, I always thought, the creative people, the way they're kind of portrayed on TV or in movies, they're a little absent-minded. Their hair is never combed. They have two different color socks. Sometimes they forget their belt and they're pulling up their pants. Crazy things like this. But according to you, and you're the expert, we can really become more creative. Is that right?
You certainly can, Bill. And that's really one of those myths that are out there, that you have to be absent-minded, a little goofy, a little on the crazy side to be creative. But what we know about creativity is that we are all creative, and we all create in different and valuable ways. And we can talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But what we've done is we've actually taken a look at what creative people do naturally, and then this has been very early on, and then we're able to systematize that and replicate that. So one of the things that creative people do naturally is they come up with lots of ideas. Well, that was the idea behind Alex Osborne's original brainstorming technique. And the key is to come up with lots of ideas Don't judge those ideas and then evaluate them later. So that's one of the key things that we do, that not only creative people do, but you can learn to do that, and we have the tools to help you to do that.
Now, Roger, could you tell us, I mean, just to start off, how do you define, or in your world of creative ideas, how do you define creativity?
Well, creativity, there's about 40 or 50 different definitions out there on what creativity is, and I like one that's really simple, and it's simply novelty that's useful, because we all agree that for something to be called creative, it has to be novel, but it also has to be useful as well. And an example I use on this is that there's several levels of novelty and usefulness. For example, when the smartphone came out, it was both novel and useful. And Bill, do you happen to remember the Pet Rock?
Oh, sure. I'm much older than you think. Sure, Pet Rock.
Well, it's either the Pet Rock or one of my other favorites is the Chia Pet. All right,
and I remember the Chia Pet also.
Right? Yeah, novel but not so useful. All right, so and so there's different levels of novelty and usefulness. If you have high novelty and highly useful, then you have something like a breakthrough, like a smartphone. But then there's other levels of novelty and usefulness as well. So,
and if you treat me well, Roger, I'll also show you my mood ring. So I'll get that out of the basement someplace and find out where that is, and we'll discuss that at another time.
Yeah, rather novel, but not so useful.
There you go. That's perfect. Roger, before we go further, we want our audience to know that if you just tuned in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and this smart man that we're talking to today is Dr. Roger Firestien. He's the author of Create in a Flash, a leader's recipe for breakthrough innovation. Roger, would you tell us where we can get the book and if there's a website where we can learn more?
Yes, the website is rogerfirestien.com, and the last name is spelled Firestien. You can get the book there, and the book is also available through Amazon.
And again, as we often try to pick out for our audience, this is one of those books, it's an easy read. You can flip through it. And if you're feeling a little stale, or maybe the competition is getting the jump on you a little bit, or you would like to get the jump on your competition, why not give it a try? You're going to like what you hear from Roger, and we're going to be talking more. Now, Roger, in your book, you had something called the 4C, as in Charles, model of creativity. Could you tell us what that is?
I'd be happy to, Bill, but just to build a little bit about the book, one of the things that you've noticed as you read through the book is that of the 150-some pages, half of the pages are pictures, and so that illustrate the points here. And so what we try to do is we don't all learn through words, so we learn through pictures as well. And so it was really important when we did the book to make sure that we have some wonderful color pictures in here, so you can indeed just flip through it, pick up a page or two or a couple pages and get some value from them.
And that's what makes it more fun and easier to read. And of course, it's your creativity that brings that out.
Hey, Bill, I got to do it. I'm in the creativity business.
There you go. Our first creative expert, and this is 31 years on the air, so you've got a lot on your shoulders. You're upholding the field of creativity today.
Well, I'll do the best I can, Bill.
I'm sure.
So when we talk about the 4C model of creativity, this really kind of goes back to that original definition that you have about creativity. So the researchers Kaufman and Bagetto, Ron Kaufman and James Kaufman and Ron Bagetto, have this wonderful model that really kind of breaks down how we define creativity. And so we talk about the big C, the little c, and the mini C, and the pro C. So big C creativity, these are all those eminent creative people out there like Mozart or Marie Curie or Albert Einstein. These are the clear-cut, eminent creative contributors, and these are the people that we look to oftentimes when we say whether we're creative or not. And if I put myself up against those folks, I wouldn't say I'm creative. All right, so that's big C. That's the big stuff. That's the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, the big breakthroughs. Little c, now this is the kind of creativity that we do every day. And so little c is a way, if you're a farmer, finding a way to fix machinery on the farm with wire and duct tape, or making a delicious meal using only the leftovers in the refrigerator. Or if you're like my mom, making a quilt out of old clothing scraps. Now, that's clothing scraps, That's little c. That's the kind of creativity that all of us do every day. The other is mini C. and that's the beginner's mind. And this is this is when a student learns something new, or this is a brand new idea being born. That's mini C. And the other one is pro C. And these are professional creators, but they haven't reached the eminent status yet. So it could be the art director who illustrated the book, or an interior designer who makes your house beautiful, or a college professor who creates lesson plans to make a dynamic class experience. So these are people these are the professional level of expertise, but have not made it to that level of the big C yet. So big C, the eminent creators; mini C, little C, the kind of creativity you do every day; mini C, the part of the learning process; and pro C, professional creators like chefs and interior designers that really do creativity for a living.
And Roger, as I took my notes from your book, even the people we might think like, oh, Freddie is the most boring guy and the dullest guy, really everybody in some respect, according to your book, is creative. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And we often tend to, Bill, when we take a look at Freddie might be the kind of person that is creative in the more incremental way. You know, we give a lot of credence and stuff and a lot of press to the disruptive creativity, the stuff that changes the world. Well, the creativity that makes something simple, that makes something safer, that makes something more effective, more cost efficient, that's creative as well. So there's both sides of the creativity, the disruptive types of creativity and the incremental type of creativity as well.
Now, I read in your book that stress is a perceived lack of options. Creativity gives you options. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because that was very interesting, and I started thinking that way. I said, oh, now I really want to be more creative, get rid of that stress. So can you talk about it?
I certainly can. Oftentimes, when you get into a stressful situation, and the reason why you have a stressful situation is because you're only thinking of one or two options to be able to get out of that situation. Now, when we teach people how to be creative, or when you're applying some of these creative principles and creative problem solving, the first principle is to defer judgment. Don't judge your ideas, and generate many ideas for solving the problem. And when I'm saying many ideas, I'm not saying 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Research shows that if you come up with about 30 ideas for solving a problem, you're bound to get some really great ideas around that. And I can talk about how to do that pretty quickly. But what tends to happen is that if you just have 1 or 2 options for dealing with something, then you can get pretty stressed out about it, all right? Because this is 1 or 2, that's all I've got. But if you have 30 different ways to deal with the idea, and about 10 or 12 of those are pretty good, that significantly lowers your stress level. So stress, you don't see the options, or you just see 1 or 2 options. When you apply your creativity to that, you see many, many more options, and that tends to knock the stress level way down, because if I can't do this, I can do this. If I can't do this, I can do this, or I can try this or try this.
And if nothing else, at least I would think as you're getting ideas, or as we're all trying to think of them, we're doing something to help that stressful situation. How am I going to pay my bills? Well, there might be 4 or 5 things that come to mind immediately, but the more we think of them, we might expand on them, make them more lucrative, or even come up with a whole new way of handling those bills and taking care of it, or fixing the car, or changing the design of our house, or whatever the problem might be.
Exactly, and you're talking about that sort of little C creativity, the kind of creativity that we do every day. So you make a budget go farther, or find a better way to make a delicious meal, or decorate the house, or things like that. Yes, absolutely.
Roger, once again, we're at a point in the show where we're going to take a brief break. I'd like our audience to know that I'm Bill Horan. We're here with our guest today, Roger Firestien. We're talking about Create in a Flash, and you're going to learn more about that, but you have to come back after the break. Right now, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
90.3 WHPC reminds you that when your loved ones need help getting around, you're more than just a daughter or a son. You're their driver, personal shopper, and financial manager. And then before you know it, you're their cook, personal assistant, physical therapist, and even nurse. When you start taking care of a loved one, you don't realize the challenge of playing so many roles. AARP understands the many roles you play, and to help, they've created an online caring resource center for the over 42 million caregivers in the U.S. who are caring for a parent or loved one. At aarp.org/caregiving, you can find local resources and connect with experts and the caregiving community. Better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving to find resources. Brought to you by AARP, the Ad Council, and the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan, and our guest today is Roger Firestien, author of Create in a Flash. Roger, when we think of a business creativity section, we kind of think of, as I said before, that section where people might be a little spacey. They might have a drawing board and do some odd things, creative things. But you say that a leader is the key to innovation in organizations. Can you explain why the leader is so important? I would always think of these, creative but maybe somewhat strange people.
Well, one of the things that we find as far as research is concerned is that when you're a leader, you have 67% of the influences in determining if the organization is going to be creative or not. So, for example, if you're a leader and the people in your organization are invested in their work, if they're contributing ideas, if they're successfully moving projects forward, and you're in charge, there's a 67% chance that you're doing some things right. However, if people are not involved in the life of your organization, they're uninvolved in their jobs, they think their organization's a wretched place to work, there's a 67% chance that it's your fault. So it's the leader that sets the tone whether an organization is going to be innovative or not. And in the successful organizations that we worked with, that leader exhibits creative behavior. And so what that means is not that they're necessarily walking around silly and goofy and wearing weird hats, but when someone comes to them with a new idea, they don't destroy that idea. They don't initially reject that idea. They listen to the idea. They look at the strengths of the idea. When someone presents them with a challenge, they don't shut the challenge down. They open it up and they ask questions that encourage more creative thinking around it. Like, well, how else might you do this? Or why else might be this be a challenge for you? So it is the leader that sets the tone whether that organization is going to be innovative or not, and they have that much influence around it.
I saw in your book where you put out a warning for leaders and you say, beware if the water is calm. Now, I would think that's good. There's no excitement, no ruffling. Things are going as seemingly as it should. So why do you set that out as a warning?
Yes, well, the image in the book, and you've hit it really nicely, is beware if the water's calm, it may be toxic, all right?
Toxic's bad.
Toxic's bad. Toxic's bad. And the illustration in there, Bill, as you know, is a pretty poignant object there. But if you think about an organization and it's just a very smooth, calm surface, well, not much is going on there, all right? It's just sitting there, and in many cases, it might be becoming stagnant, okay? But if there's bubbles in the water there, if there's some waves kicking up, if there's some churning going on, if there's action in your lake, that's good. So if the lake is smooth, there's a chance that it's going to be stagnant or even toxic. And we list some, and who made the lake toxic? Well, that's you, the leader. And we list some qualities of the toxic leader and the healthy leader. If you'd like, I can mention a few of those.
Absolutely.
Well, so for example, the toxic leader is aloof. The healthy leader is approachable. The toxic leader tells. The healthy leader listens or seeks ideas. A toxic leader, interestingly enough, avoids debate. A healthy leader explores dissent and differing views. Toxic leader intimidates. A healthy leader encourages. A toxic leader rules with fear. Healthy leader leads with fairness. We have a whole list of these things in the book there that we found as far as what people would describe as a toxic leader and what people describe as a healthy leader. And the healthy leader is a person who leads an organization that's successful, a good place to work, an innovative company, a place where people want to go to work every day.
Now, Roger, even though we said that everybody is creative, are some people just born more creative? And I guess the people would come to mind, the great innovators, like you say, an Einstein or Edison, somebody like that. Are there people who are just way ahead of the crowd? I guess the analogy would be like the great athlete in any sport.
I think that's a really good analogy, Bill. There's the great athletes in any sport. There's the great creators in any field. One of the things that people often tend to do is that they tend to equate creativity with intelligence, and that's not true. We have what we call the threshold factor, and up to about an IQ of about 120 or so. That's just a little over average IQ. Creativity and intelligence is related, but after that, there's all bets are off. So you can have very, very intelligent people that aren't necessarily creative at all, really technically proficient folks, or you could have people that have a moderate amount of intelligence but are highly creative. It's a whole different mental activity that's going on there as far as that's concerned. And yeah, you have the eminent creators, you have the people that are passionate about that. Not all of us are great super athletes, but we can all still play football, or we can all still participate in athletics if we want to.
Now, you say that too often we wait for a problem to hit, and only then do we try to solve it. And I'm saying, wait, everything in your book seems so logical and sensible up to that point. Would I put a Band-Aid on my hand before I get a cut so it's already on there? Or are you just pulling our leg a little bit with that statement?
Yeah, well, really, it's very interesting because if you look at highly creative people, and if you look at these people that have made a difference out there, what they do is they do what we call problem-seeking behaviors or opportunity-seeking behaviors. Think about a gap from what you want to, from where things are to where you want to be. All right, a Band-Aid is going to solve the problem afterwards, but if you want to be innovative, the distinction is what are the problems out there that we're not addressing. What are the opportunities out there that we're not that we're not taking advantage of? The smartphone's a great example. People were fine with regular landline phones, all right, but there was an opportunity out there or a problem. In other words, like we need to be more mobile with these things. Whoever thought that you'd be able to play music out of your phone, all right, and so in that case, what happens is you're looking for not necessarily so much a problem, but a gap from what could be to what is. And so somebody that focus on just what is and don't ask the question, well, what if?
Very interesting. Now, Roger, before we get to the big question of today's show, I'd like our audience to know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Our guest today is Roger Firestien. He's the author of Create in a Flash. You've been listening to all these interesting things he's been saying. So now we're going to ask Roger if you can tell us a website where we can find out more and be a little more creative like you.
Yeah, you can go right to my website, Roger Firestien, FIRESTIEN.com. And Bill, we have the book on the site. We have about 25 or 30 different videos that shows you how to be deliberately creative. We have a number of programs that we do there, a number of blogs. We probably have about 20 or 30 different blogs that are on there. And if you go to the website, you can also subscribe to the blog. You can also take a look at these videos that show people actually using creativity, using these things in action, using the creative problem-solving process, and then videos are free. So love for you to buy the book, but if you decide not to do that, the videos are free and all the things that accompany them are free as well. So RogerFirestien.com.
And I think after we see some of those videos, we'll want the book because we'll be more creative. Life will be a lot easier, and we'll be famous like Roger Firestien. So there we go.
Oh, Bill, that's very kind. That's very kind.
Now, your system, the CPS, or that stands for, tell our audience.
Creative Problem Solving. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell us what that is, because that's the heart, I think, of the book. There's a 4-step program to that. What are those 4 steps?
Right. And now creative problem solving is something that we do naturally. So what we're doing is we're enhancing what you naturally do. We make it explicit. So first thing you do is you clarify what the problem is, all right? So you identify a goal or a wish or a challenge, something that you want to make happen, all right? Then you come up with some various different ways to define that problem, and you try and find the biggest obstacle or the biggest block that's preventing you from getting there. Once you've clarified what the problem is, and we use creative questions to clarify what the problem is, so we ask questions like how to or how might, or in what ways might we reduce the cost instead of saying, well, it's going to cost too much, all right? Once you have a well-defined problem to work on or a creative question, then we generate some ideas. Generate lots of ideas. Don't judge them, and then evaluate them later. So come up with a variety of ideas. Select them later. Once we have the ideas developed, select the best of those ideas. Refine those ideas using a technique that we call pluses and potentials and concerns. In other words, take a look at what's good about the idea, and polish it up and make the idea better. And then finally develop an action plan. As you develop an action plan, it's very simple. Just don't judge all of your possible actions. Make a big list of them, pick the best of them, put them into action. Now, bare bones, that's the creative problem-solving process. And there's lots of other enhancement that you can use to really make it more effective, other techniques to fit into that. But that's basically it.
In a business setting, and let's say a law office where lawyers often have to come up with a creative argument, etc., or a small business, whatever that might be, the local restaurant or auto parts store, how long should this take? Is this a matter of we sit down for half an hour or 1 hour a day for a week, or is it over a month's period of time, or do we just look for inspiration?
Well, let's not just look for inspiration, okay? Let's make it a little bit more deliberate than that. What we recommend to do, and as a matter of fact, you can just pick up and look at some of the videos that are on the website. First, what we recommend that you do is just do a little warm-up activity. And so the key about this, Bill, is that oftentimes people go into a session and they say, okay, let's get creative now. And they expect people to come up with some new ideas right away. So the twist to this is before you get into the tough stuff, take about 5 minutes and just throw out something that might be kind of fun to play around with. And we use the example of like, a warm-up might be what might be all the ways to improve a refrigerator, or how do you get a hippopotamus out of a bathtub? That's one of my favorites. What do you do with 10 tons of orange Jell-O? How to get a bear out of your living room? What might you do with 50,000 bowling balls that are flat on one side? Ridiculous, kind of fun, whimsical challenges to work on. Take 5 minutes. Generate some ideas for solving that, okay? Then make sure you have a well-defined problem, okay, so that you're very specific about what you want to work on. Then I would say take about 10 minutes or so to generate some ideas for solving that. Don't judge the ideas. Go for wild and unusual ideas. Build on other ideas. And once you have spent about that amount of time, you're generally going to have about 30 or 40 ideas. And the rest of the time, spend that time, if we were working an hour meeting, evaluating those ideas, refining them, and building them. Unfortunately, Bill, I think you've seen this happen. You conduct a brainstorming session, and there are two things go wrong. First off, it's not a real brainstorming session at all. People are judging their ideas while they're generating them, so you don't have much quantity. And the other thing is you fill the room with Post-its and stuff on flip charts on the wall, and nobody does anything with them later. The key is you need to be able to select those ideas, then refine them and put them into action. And that's why the process is diverging out, coming up with lots of ideas, converging in, focusing on the best ideas.
Roger, I can't wait for your next book entitled How to Get a Hippopotamus Out of a Bathtub, because I'm already thinking about that, and I really think that's a top 10 bestseller. We're running out of time, so I want to thank Roger Firestien, our guest today. His book is Create in a Flash, a leader's recipe for breakthrough innovation. Real quick, the website again, Roger?
Just RogerFirestien.com, RogerFirestien.com, and you can also get the book through Amazon.
And maybe he'll even tell you how to get the hippopotamus out of the bathtub or what to do with 10 tons of Jell-O. Roger, thanks so much for being with us today. We'd like to remind our audience, we've been having a lot of fun. I can't even do this without laughing. You've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at this same time when we will continue our journey to success.